I've been thinking about this.
Yeah.
Sorry, if someone else wants to go.
No, please, go.
So, I think some of it is about narrational authority.
Okay.
From which is the right N word for that one, but narrational authority will go. Which is, so in contrast to, I've been watching your Ring Quest game, and a lot of the times with people, you're mostly narrating the outcomes of the actions, and often you are recontextualizing you didn't hit this thing. It's not because you're no use with your scary, huge sword thing. It's because they're strange and rubbery and have multiple tentacles, and therefore you weren't quite sure where to go. And you contextualize the failure in a way that is preserving your and the player's conception of this is a badass character with a scary sword thing. And the system in Legendary Lives fights back against that.
Right.
Because
it actually has multiple one that levels. Says this humiliates you.
Yes. So and probably for the catastrophic failures that would be fair enough and fine. But maybe do the same thing in another system. But it's got very fine-grained sorts of failures which don't let you express this is our artistic view of what this character is like, and therefore when they fail, what it's like. And puts more constraints on that, which is interesting because I think it highlights something completely separate, which is the importance of narrational authority artistically or something like that. Even if it doesn't mean you get to say this person succeeds and this person fails, because that's been determined by the system, you still have a lot of input through that, potentially. But in this system, it's more constrained because, like I said, you fail and it's humiliating, and therefore, which I actually quite like sometimes, because it things like, okay, now I've had to invent the lady next door who's going to come and poke you in the ribs and complain about the noise you're making.
I don't want to interrupt Rod, who clearly wants to hop in.
Interrupt you, yes. Yeah. Chain of last in, first out. Okay. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Rod.
Oh, you were saying to me. Oh, okay. Well, that reminds me of something that I was thinking about, which is that with the D100 roll, we kind of have a tendency, I guess, gamers in general, to associate the number you roll quality of effort.
Right.
But that's not necessarily, what if one interpreted the extreme high and low rolls as genuinely interference of outside forces? I'm just thinking, in other words, is there something available to contextualize?
Well, people have done that with fumbles and criticals for a long time. Right. The idea being that this is something I actually want to do a whole seminar about, which is as fumble and critical as plot. That if you roll if you succeed with a 17 in modern D&D, well, it's just a success. But if you get a 20, we're going to treat this as actually a moment, a plot affecting situation. And it doesn't just mean you did very well at the task. You actually jump into more of a director stance and make this about more and more things happening externally. And so that's a related issue. What there's another interesting aspect of it too, which is that we've got this gradation of how to narrate per bit, right? And I keep going back to my thoughts about the Marvel Superheroes table, where the distribution. First of all, there's only four outcomes. Right. There's not 10 outcomes. There's 4. Second, they are really, they balloon. The failure balloons as your ability goes down. The excellence, which is hardly attainable at all if you're normal, creeps. That red from the bottom right corner just creeps up. And it never gets to be very big. And so it's kind of interesting. Here, you're going to see in Marvel Superheroes, you're going to see the broad spectrum of highly impactful results only if you've got a broad spectrum of heroes.
Right.
You know, you've got to have heroes who are cosmic before you start seeing cosmic shit pretty reliably.
Right. And, although you are spending karma in Marvel,
that's true too. But again, that's true too. But the idea is that we do perceive that as a Hail Mary moment, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Whereas I guess what I'm saying in the Legendary Lives, the characters are all built on the same scale. And so, in other words, you don't have, human to cosmic characters. You have everybody's a guy.
Right.
And now we get to watch everybody carom across that whole range. I mean, it's still tricky, though. I mean...
Well, it's like, so you've talked about before, in terms of the number of... You can kind of make it probably play out. So I assumed at the beginning that the way it would, yes, it would be swingy, but you make enough rolls, and over time it will even out, and you'll see lots of good stuff.
That's pretty much the way we treat anything, right? I mean, with I've got a 75% in my sword, and you've got a 25%. We're just going to roll a lot. Right.
And I think if we had lots of fights, and therefore you were rolling the same thing often, quite a lot, and repeatedly turn off the turn relatively quickly, it will probably do that, and you would see a few, and you fall over your swords, and then and you cut his head off.
And the default assumption of the game does seem to be that you will have lots of fun.
True. Although, given all those awesome abilities, it's really hard not to,
I know.
Jump into a more varied situation. But as soon as you do that, I see where you guys are going with this. As soon as you do this, and we are playing all of our abilities, including some really crap runs,
and you've got
watching us try to
60
run
odd
one time, for example.
Yeah.
And you've got 60 odd abilities, and so the odds are not that you will be rolling your best ones all the time, and therefore over time, and all that often, and so you're not going to see the 70% of the time when you're really awesome at doing the thing you've got a 15 in, because you're only rolling it a few times potentially, and over that small number of samples, the probabilities.
The probability stays the same, except that but your ability to enjoy the probabilities, it changes, if that makes any difference.
That's the
right.
Well, and in a combat situation, you're probably going to be playing a few rounds of combat so that you have more of those rolls to make. Whereas other abilities, it's not. It's kind of like, okay, you basically have it all hinging on one roll.
Here it comes. Yeah.
Right.
That's particularly with the social roles. Also, as a GM, there's no guidance to say you've charmed this character, therefore they are charmed forever, or just for whatever it was you were talking about, they will be friendly and you meet them again. And I think that then led to a reluctance to engage too much with that sort of thing with characters, because if you met someone and you wanted to get on with them, and then I've got to make a charm roll, it goes really badly, they're going to want to throw me off their ship or whatever it is, and there's not
I wonder
really
if some kind of
good guidelines or how to work that, or this should apply for this amount of time. And one of the strengths of the system is you can bend it and say we're making a roll and it covers months worth of doing this or 5 seconds of this, but gauging the scale of the impacts is perhaps.
And also the tendency to abuse any number of the things we've talked about comes to mind. To abuse what you just described is to simply minimize the time, the duration, and extent of a failure. Say, okay, well, that just applies to the next 5 seconds. They glare at you. Okay, roll again.
Right.
And there's that. And then there's another abuse, which is fairly important, which is to really softball the failures, which is something that I'm always criticizing. I mean, because it's such an obvious technique, watching a game master in whatever system simply softball all the failures until the characters succeed. Because they're supposed to do this scene. And I don't care how many failures they roll along the way, you're just going to kind of laugh them off until they finally get to it. They search the desk and they fumble. Oh, you pinch your finger. But you can search under the bed.
Yeah. I came to refer to that as the trick when I was watching people run Dungeon World.
Right.
For example, not that it's particular to Dungeon World, but that's where I first realized. That's where I first put all the pieces together. And, this is what's happening. Yeah.
Uh-huh. I'm doing my best to look bland and uninterested in that insight. Failing badly. I'm making my Powered by the Apocalypse face.
So
yeah, I know you are. Yeah.
I was the point where I was most tempted to do that. I think was that very last roll you did, where you were trying to persuade the what's his name, the nomad, to fight Skirlin.
Right.
And that would have been.
But you did make a fate roll, right? Didn't you make a fate roll to see whether the queen heard it?
Oh yeah, maybe we did something like that.
I think you did. I mean, I see what you mean. Yeah. You may have been tempted to, but you actually said no. I'm gonna.
You made your charm roll.
Go for a roll. Yeah.
I made you make cunning rolls for him against him first, but I might well have.
Yeah. Well, what I wonder is whether 4th edition style skill challenges are the thing that this needs to put a framework in place,
so that you actually have a step-by-step skill fight,
right?
With damage and stuff. As I recall, God, I'll have to go back and review the skill challenges in the first DM guide for 4th edition were doable, but were pretty simple. And then it was the second DM guide that really drilled into how to integrate them with other conflicts, how to shift in and out of fighting versus skill, and also how, and I think it may have structured them or provided options for structuring them differently. They were, as I recall, though, they were surprisingly easy to fail. I mean, you had to fight you had to really put it on the line to win a skill challenge, which I thought was good, that it wasn't just a workaround. I think they were trying to keep it from being a workaround. But yes, I think actually that might really help Legendary Lives. Some sort of pacing for these social mechanics, so that you work your way through. Sort of like, we've got several in role-playing. We've got Duel of Wits and Burning Wheel. Fine, I will. One of these days, I'm way too busy, but one of these days, I'm going to repurpose the Legendary Lives table with the probability shape of, maybe it's the other way around, repurpose the Marvel Superheroes probabilities with the structure of the Legendary Lives table. And say, okay, what does the Marvel Superheroes, or what is Legendary Lives like if we use Marvel Superheroes probability logic for its divisions? And I don't know if it would make a difference, but I'm kind of numbers oriented enough that I think it would. But there's qualitative aspects of it too. I mean, the narration matters, the